Hey everyone, I'm Peter Stories here to guide you today. If you use this video to drift off to sleep, please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now settle in, get cozy, and let yourself relax. My name is Travis Kennedy, and I need to tell someone what really happened to Chloe Anderson before they find me. Before the thing wearing my face comes back. Before reality finishes unraveling at the edges like a photograph left too long in acid. I've been a ranger at Great Smoky Mountains National Park for 8 months, fresh out of training, eager as hell to prove I belonged among the weathered veterans who'd been walking these ridges since before I was born. My Motorola APX 6000 crackled to life at 0347 hours on October 13, 2018. Dispatch's voice cutting through the pre-dawn darkness of my one-bedroom apartment in Gatlinburg. Unit 47, we have a code yellow. 22-year-old female Chloe Anderson failed to return from overnight backpacking trip. Last known position, Appalachian Trail mile marker 203.4 near Cataract Falls. Family's been calling since midnight. I fumbled for my uniform, muscles still stiff from yesterday's patrol. The metallic taste of instant coffee lingered in my mouth as I grabbed my gear. Garmin eTrex GPS, first aid kit, emergency shelter, 3 days of MREs. My hands shook slightly. First real search and rescue op flying solo. Chief Brennan's voice echoed in my memory. Kennedy, you're green as spring grass, but you've got good instincts. Trust your gut out there. The drive to Newfound Gap took 47 minutes through mountain switchbacks shrouded in October mist. My headlights cut through fog so thick it seemed solid, pressing against the windshield like something alive. The radio chattered with morning reports. Unit 23, clear skies at Chimney Tops. Unit 15, temps dropping fast at Cades Cove. Normal sounds, safe sounds. At 0530, I started hiking toward Cataract Falls, my Danner Mountain Light 2 boots finding purchase on wet leaves that smelled of decay and something else. Something wrong. 37 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity at 92%. Wind from the northeast at 8 knots, carrying scents that made my hindbrain scream warnings I couldn't understand. Mile marker 203.4 sat beside a wooden trail sign weathered gray with age. I keyed my radio. Unit 47 to dispatch. On scene at Anderson LKP, beginning sign cutting. Copy, Unit 47. Weather Service shows possible severe thunderstorms moving in from the west. Keep us posted every 30 minutes. Chloe's trail was easy to follow at first. Size 7, Merrill hiking boots. Moderate wear pattern on the outer edges. She'd left the main trail at marker 203.2, following what looked like a game path winding deeper into unmarked wilderness. Smart girl. The official trail didn't offer much in terms of scenic camping, but these mountains held secrets older than the Cherokee who'd once called them sacred. By 0800, I'd followed her tracks for 2 miles through rhododendron thickets and across 3 creek beds. The temperature had dropped to 29 degrees, and my breath formed clouds that seemed to hang in the air too long, swirling in patterns that hurt to watch directly. My Garmin showed coordinates 35.6387 to Grayman, 83.4892 to Gray W, but the numbers kept flickering, changing by fractions of degrees even while I stood perfectly still. That's when I found her campsite. The orange REI quarter dome tent sat in a small clearing beside a stream that didn't appear on any topographical map. Her camping gear was neatly arranged. MSR pocket rocket stove, Nalgene water bottle half full, North Face sleeping bag still zipped closed. Everything exactly as it should be except for the silence. No birds, no insects, no wind through the trees. Just the stream's whisper, which sounded less like water and more like voices speaking in a language that predated human words. I keyed my radio. Unit 47 to dispatch located Anderson's campsite. Subject not present but no signs of struggle. Coordinates. The radio erupted in static. I checked the battery indicator. Full charge. But the screen showed impossible readings. GPS coordinates that placed me simultaneously in Tennessee, Tibet, and somewhere called Rulia. Dispatch Unit 47, radio check. Nothing but white noise that sounded almost like screaming. My phone showed no bars, typical for this elevation, but the screen kept changing. Text messages appeared from my girlfriend Sarah. "Miss you, baby. See you tonight." But we'd broken up 3 months ago. Another from my mom. "Proud of you, Travis. Dad would be too." Dad had been dead for 15 years. I photographed the campsite with the phone's camera. In the viewfinder, everything looked normal. But when I reviewed the images, they showed not Chloe's neat campsite, but a circle of standing stones covered in symbols that seemed to writhe when I wasn't looking directly at them. The wrongness pressed against my skull like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Every instinct told me to retreat, call for backup, follow protocol. But Chloe Anderson was missing, and I was the only ranger within 20 miles. Her parents had driven 16 hours from Michigan after she missed her scheduled check-in. They'd shown me photos. Bright smile, brown hair and hiking braids, majoring in astronomy at University of Michigan. "She studies stars," her mother had whispered, always looking up at things too far away to understand. I followed the stream deeper into woods that shouldn't exist. My compass spun lazily, pointing to every direction except magnetic north. The creek led to a waterfall, Cataract Falls according to my map, but the water fell upward, droplets ascending into a sky that had somehow become the color of deep ocean. And there, standing in the mist, where physics forgot its rules, I saw her, the Mujer de Branco. She wore a wedding dress from some bygone era, fabric that might once have been white but now held the color of bone left too long in dark places. Her face was beautiful and terrible, simultaneously young and ancient, with eyes that reflected not light but the space between stars. When she moved, reality bent around her like heat shimmer. "You seek the girl," she said, voice echoing from directions that didn't exist. "But do you understand what she found?" I tried to speak, but my throat had forgotten how. The thing that might have been a woman gestured toward the waterfall, and I saw Chloe Anderson suspended in the ascending water, her body rotating slowly, arms outstretched like a crucified saint. Her eyes were open, staring at constellations that burned in the daylight sky. "She looked too long at the spaces between stars," the Mujer de Branco continued. "She learned that your universe is but a thin membrane stretched over an ocean of hungry darkness. She saw the truth that would have driven lesser minds to blessed madness." If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Travis Kennedy's situation? Comment below. The entity's words crashed over me like tsunami waves. Images flooded my mind. Earth spinning not around the sun but around something vast and tentacled that fed on starlight. Human consciousness as accidental static in a cosmic radio tuned to frequencies that broadcast only screaming. Every prayer ever uttered falling not toward heaven but into the endless maw of things that had never been born and could never die. "She tried to run," the Mujer de Branco said, stepping closer. With each footstep, the ground rippled like water, but knowledge once gained cannot be unknown. "She called to us, begging to forget. We granted her mercy." Chloe's suspended form began to descend, her body passing through the upward flowing water as if both were made of different kinds of dream. When her boots touched the rocky pool, she opened her eyes and smiled at me with an expression of such profound relief that I wept without knowing why. "Travis," she said, voice carrying impossible harmonics. "I've been waiting for someone to understand, someone to carry the message." "What message?" The words tore from my throat like broken glass. "That love is the only thing that matters when reality ends." She gestured at the sky where impossible stars wheeled in daylight configurations. "My parents drove 16 hours because they love me. You came alone into this place because you love your job, love the idea of being a hero." Sarah texted because she loves the memory of who you were. I looked at my phone. Sarah's messages were still there, but they were changing as I watched. "I love what you could have been, and I love your ghost already. And finally, I love the universe that will forget you." The Mujer de Branco placed one impossibly cold hand on my shoulder. Where she touched, my ranger uniform began to change, fabric becoming something that belonged to no earthly manufacturer. The girl learned too much. She saw the machinery behind the illusion. But you still have time to choose. Choose what? Whether to remember or forget. Whether to carry the knowledge that will eventually drive you to blessed madness, or return to your small life, believing you never found her. Around us, the forest began to dissolve. Trees became mathematical equations scratched in the air. The stream revealed itself as flowing darkness that had never been water at all. The sky opened like a wound, showing the true cosmos beneath. An endless void where things that had never been born fed on the dreams of dying stars. But through it all, one thing remained solid. Chloe Anderson, standing in that impossible place, holding onto her humanity through sheer force of will. I choose to remember, I said. I choose to bring her home. The Mujer de Branco smiled, and for a moment she almost looked human. Then you will carry this knowledge alone until it destroys you. You will spend your remaining years trying to convince others of truths they cannot safely understand. You will become a prophet of the ending of all things. Maybe, but her parents love her enough to drive 16 hours. That matters more than cosmic truth. Something shifted in the entity's ancient eyes. Love, she repeated as if tasting a foreign word. Yes, the only force in any universe that creates rather than consumes. Very well, young ranger. Take her. But know that the knowledge she carries will spread like infection. Others will look too long at the spaces between stars. The impossible forest began to reassemble itself around us. Water flowed downward again. The sky became merely blue instead of vast and hungry. My compass found magnetic north. The GPS showed our true coordinates, exactly where they should be. But I knew I would never unsee what lay beneath the comfortable lie of normal reality. Chloe Anderson walked with me out of those woods on October 13th, 2018. The official report stated that she had suffered from exposure and mild hypothermia, with some temporary disorientation that fully resolved after medical evaluation. Her parents cried with relief and drove her home to Michigan, where she would later change her major from astronomy to elementary education. I want to teach children, she told the local newspaper, to love the world too much to ever want to see what's underneath it. But late at night, when I lie awake in my apartment in Gatlinburg, I receive text messages from numbers that don't exist. Photos of forests where the trees have eyes. Video messages showing the real stars, the hungry ones that wheel in dimensions beyond human perception. And sometimes, on the clearest nights, I see the Mujer de Branco standing at the edge of my vision, smiling sadly, waiting for the day when the knowledge I carry finally breaks my mind. Because cosmic truth is patient. It knows that love, no matter how fierce, cannot hold back the tide of understanding forever. And when I finally succumb to blessed madness, someone else will find these words. Someone else will choose to remember rather than forget. Someone else will learn that the universe dreams and we are the nightmares it tries desperately to wake from. The only question is, will you look up at the spaces between stars, or will you choose to love the lie that lets you sleep? Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like if you want more terrifying Ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Chloe Anderson. I read every single one. My name is Tyler Brooks, and I've been a forest ranger at Olympic National Park for 8 years. What I'm about to tell you happened in October 2018, and I swear on my daughter's life that every word is true. I wish to God it wasn't. I've always had this feeling, a sixth sense, my wife Sarah calls it. Other rangers joke that I can smell trouble before it happens, but it's deeper than that. It's like the forest whispers to me, warns me when something's wrong. The morning I got the call about Rachel Stone, that whisper became a scream. Unit 47, this is dispatch. We have a missing hiker, female, age 24, last seen on the Hoh River Trail yesterday evening. The radio crackled through the morning stillness as I finished tying my Merrill boots. My coffee, Colombian dark roast Sarah had ground fresh, turned bitter in my mouth before I'd even heard the details. Copy that, dispatch. What's our LKP? I keyed the radio, already reaching for my pack. The weight of it, 42 pounds of emergency gear, medical supplies, and 3 days of rations, felt heavier than usual across my shoulders. Last known position, mile marker 7 on the Hoh River Trail. Family says she was taking photos of the Roosevelt elk migration. Name's Rachel Stone, driving a blue Honda Civic, license plate Charlie Victor Nora 4479. I knew that stretch of trail. Hell, I'd rescued 3 separate idiots from that exact area in the past 2 years. The forest gets thick there, old-growth Douglas firs creating a canopy so dense that noon looks like twilight. But something about this felt different. Wrong. The back of my neck prickled like someone was dragging ice cubes down my spine. ETA 20 minutes, I radioed back, grabbing my truck keys from the hook by the door. Before leaving, I did what I always did. Kissed Sarah's sleeping forehead and slipped into Emma's room to watch her breathe for 30 seconds. My 7-year-old daughter lay curled around her stuffed wolf, her auburn hair splayed across the frozen pillowcase. "Daddy will be home for dinner," I whispered, like I always did. "Won't miss your soccer game tomorrow." The drive to the trailhead took me past Lake Crescent, its surface mirror still in the pre-dawn darkness. My headlights cut through patches of mist rising from the water, and for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw something moving between the trees on the far shore, something that walked upright but moved wrong, too fluid, too quick. I shook it off. 8 years in these mountains, you see things. Shadows that aren't quite right, movement in your peripheral vision, sounds that don't match any animal you know. The Olympic Peninsula has more missing persons cases per square mile than anywhere else in Washington state. Most of the time it's inexperience, city folk who think a day hike is like walking through Central Park. Sometimes it's the weather, hypothermia taking someone before they can signal for help. Sometimes people just vanish. At the Hoh River trailhead, Rachel Stone's Honda Civic sat alone in the gravel parking area. October meant fewer hikers, and at 6:47 a.m. I had the place to myself. I ran the license plate, matched dispatch's information. I peered through the windows. Water bottle in the cup holder, trail mix scattered on the passenger seat, iPhone charging cable plugged into the cigarette lighter. Her purse sat on the floor, wallet visible inside. She hadn't planned to disappear. I shouldered my pack and started up the trail, immediately feeling that wrongness intensify. The forest was too quiet. In 20 years of hiking these mountains, 8 as a ranger, 12 before that as a local, I'd never heard silence like this. No bird calls, no rustling of small mammals, not even the buzz of insects. Just the sound of my breathing and the crunch of fallen leaves under my Vibram soles. At mile marker 3, I found her first clue, a Sony camera lens cap, the plastic scratched like it had been dropped on rocks. I bagged it, marked the GPS coordinates, 47.8606 degree N, 123.9348 degree W, and called it in. Unit 47 to dispatch. Found possible evidence at mile marker 3. Continuing search pattern north. Copy that, Tyler. Weather Service is calling for heavy rain by 1400 hours. Be advised. I could already smell it coming, that metallic scent of moisture building in the air. My grandmother used to say I could predict weather better than the meteorologists, and she wasn't wrong. Storm was coming in fast, probably with 40-mile-per-hour winds. If Rachel was injured somewhere off-trail, she had maybe 6 hours before hypothermia became a real threat. But as I hiked deeper into the old-growth forest, something else began to bother me. The trail felt different. Not the main trail. That was exactly where it should be. Worn dirt and exposed roots winding between massive tree trunks. But there was another path. It started as just a feeling, like when you sense someone watching you. Then I began to notice it in my peripheral vision, a faint trail branching off to the east, visible only when I wasn't looking directly at it. When I turned my head to examine it, there was nothing there. Just thick undergrowth and Douglas fir trunks disappearing into shadows. At mile marker 5, I found Rachel's hiking boot. Just one, a women's size 7 Merrill Moab, sitting upright in the middle of the trail like someone had carefully placed it there. No sign of a struggle, no disturbed earth, no blood. The laces were still tied. Dispatch, This is Unit 47. Found a hiking boot. Appears to belong to our missing person. Something's not right here. Define not right, Tyler. I stared at that boot, trying to put my unease into words. The placement is too deliberate. And the forest... I paused, listening to the oppressive silence. Dispatch, I'm not hearing any wildlife. No birds, no rodents, nothing. It's like every animal in a 5-mile radius just left. Copy that. Additional units are en route, ETA 1 hour. Continue search but maintain radio contact every 20 minutes. That's when I saw it clearly for the first time. As I knelt to photograph Rachel's boot, the other trail flickered into full visibility. It branched off to the east, winding between ancient trees, and it was unlike any path I'd ever seen. The dirt looked fresh. Not fresh like recently maintained, but fresh like newly turned earth. And it seemed to glow with a faint phosphorescence, barely visible in the filtered sunlight. I stood up, my heart hammering against my ribs, and looked directly at the trail. It remained visible, solid, real. But here's what made my blood turn to ice water. Carved into a tree at the head of this impossible path were Portuguese words, burned deep into the bark like they'd been branded there. Trila dos Mortos. So os condenados podem ver. I didn't speak Portuguese, but I'd heard enough of it from the Brazilian logging crews to recognize the language, and somehow, looking at those words, I understood their meaning with perfect clarity. Trail of the dead. Only the doomed can see. My hands started shaking as I keyed the radio. Dispatch, I need you to run a search on any local legends or folklore related to trails that appear in the forest, specifically anything in Portuguese. Tyler, you're breaking up. Can you repeat? I looked at my radio display. Full bars, strong signal. But my voice was coming out as static. The phosphorescent trail pulsed once like a heartbeat, and I heard something that made me drop my radio entirely. Rachel Stone's voice, calling for help, coming from somewhere deep in the trees. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Tyler's situation? Comment below. I should have waited for backup. Every protocol, every bit of training, screamed at me to wait for the additional units. But Rachel's voice came again, weaker this time, filled with a terror that bypassed my rational mind and spoke directly to my protective instincts. Help me. Please. Tyler. She knew my name. I grabbed my radio from where it had fallen. The display was flickering between normal and static, like it couldn't decide what reality to show me. Dispatch. I'm pursuing an auditory contact with the missing person. Trail markers. Trail markers aren't matching my GPS. What came back through the speaker wasn't dispatch. It was my daughter's voice. Daddy? Why can you see the scary path? I yanked the radio away from my ear like it had burned me. When I looked at the display again, it showed normal readings. Strong signal, clear channel. I keyed it again. Dispatch, this is Unit 47, radio check. Unit 47, this is dispatch, you're 5x5, what's your current position? Emma's voice was gone, but my hands were still shaking. The phosphorescent trail pulsed again, brighter this time, and I heard Rachel calling from deeper in the forest. Not just calling, screaming. The sound of someone in mortal terror, voice cracking with desperation. I started down the trail of the dead. The first thing I noticed was the temperature drop. Within 50 feet of leaving the main trail, the air felt 20 degrees colder. My breath misted, and the sweat on my forehead turned clammy. The second thing was the smell. Not decay exactly, but something older. Like air that had been trapped underground for centuries. The trees along this path were wrong too. Same species. Douglas fir, western red cedar, big leaf maple. But their bark looked diseased, covered in a gray film that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at it. And the shadows they cast didn't match the angle of the sun filtering through the canopy above. At what should have been mile marker 6, I found Rachel's other boot. It was hanging from a branch 15 feet above the trail, suspended by its laces like a Christmas ornament. The positioning was impossible. No one could have thrown it that high, and there were no other branches close enough for someone to climb and place it there. "Rachel," I called out. "Rachel Stone, if you can hear me, I'm Tyler Brooks with the Forest Service. I'm here to help." My voice echoed strangely, like I was shouting in a cathedral. And when the echo came back, it carried other voices with it. Dozens of them, all calling the same thing. Tyler, Tyler, Tyler. Some sounded like Rachel. Others were voices I didn't recognize. But one of them, the one that made my knees buckle, was my own voice, screaming my name like I was the one who was lost. I pressed forward, because what else could I do? Behind me, the main trail had vanished completely. There was only the phosphorescent path stretching deeper into the forest, pulsing with that heartbeat rhythm. And I was starting to understand something that my rational mind rejected, but my intuitive sense accepted as horrible truth. The only way off the trail of the dead was forward. My GPS was useless now, spinning between random coordinates that placed me everywhere from Seattle to Antarctica. My compass pointed in all directions at once. But my phone was working perfectly. Too perfectly. I had full bars and 4G in an area where I'd never gotten more than 1 bar on my best day. And I had 17 missed calls from Sarah, even though my phone had never rung. I opened the voicemail messages with trembling fingers. Message 1, received 7:23 a.m. "Tyler, where are you? Emma's asking for you. She says she had a nightmare about you walking on a glowing path. Call me back." Message 5, received 8:15 a.m. "Tyler, your captain called. He says you never checked in at the trailhead. What the hell is going on?" Message 12, received 9:47 a.m. "Tyler, please. Emma won't stop crying. She keeps saying Daddy is lost on the scary path. She's drawing pictures. Tyler, she's drawing pictures of you walking behind a line of dead people. Please call me back." Message 17, received 10:52 a.m. "Tyler, I found your wedding ring on the kitchen counter, but you're wearing it. I'm looking at you right now, asleep in bed next to me. But you're also not here. Tyler, what's happening to us?" According to my phone, it was 11:43 a.m. I'd been on the trail for 5 hours, but it felt like 30 minutes. And according to the last voicemail, there was another Tyler at home sleeping next to Sarah. The trail of the dead pulsed brighter, and I heard Rachel again. But this time, I could see her. She was walking ahead of me, maybe 100 yards down the phosphorescent path. Walking, not running, not struggling. Just walking. Like she was out for a pleasant morning stroll. Her auburn hair flowed behind her in a wind I couldn't feel, and she was wearing both of her hiking boots. "Rachel!" I called out, breaking into a run. She turned around and I saw her face clearly for the first time. It was my face. Not similar to my face. It was my face, down to the scar through my left eyebrow from a childhood accident and the slight asymmetry in my smile that Emma always made fun of. Rachel Stone had become Tyler Brooks, and Tyler Brooks was staring back at Tyler Brooks on a trail that only the doomed could see. "You're finally catching up," she said in my voice. "We've been waiting for you." That's when I saw the others. They stepped out from behind the diseased trees, a procession of people walking the trail of the dead. Men, women, children, elderly, dozens of them, all with that same peaceful expression Rachel wore. And all of them had my face. Every single person who had ever disappeared in Olympic National Park was there, wearing Tyler Brooks's face like a mask, walking the phosphorescent trail that led deeper into the forest. I recognized some of them from missing person reports I'd filed over the years. The college student from 2015, the family of 4 from 2017, the experienced mountaineer from just last month. All of them looked like me. All of them spoke in perfect unison. "Welcome to the trail of the dead, Tyler Brooks. You've been walking it your whole life." I tried to run, turned around and sprinted back the way I'd come, crashing through undergrowth, jumping over fallen logs, my breath coming in ragged gasps that tasted like copper and fear. But the phosphorescent trail stretched out behind me too, extending infinitely in both directions. There was no main trail, no parking lot, no Honda Civic, no world beyond this glowing path through diseased trees. And I could hear them all behind me, walking at that same measured pace, all of them wearing my face, all of them speaking in my voice. You can see us because you were always one of us. Every person you've rescued over the years. You never rescued anyone, Tyler. You just helped them find their way to the trail. I collapsed against a massive cedar, my legs giving out, and fumbled for my phone. Sarah answered on the first ring. Tyler? Tyler, thank God, where are you? Sarah, listen to me very carefully. I'm lost in the forest, but not in the way you think. I need you to take Emma and leave the house, right now. Don't pack, don't wait. Just get in the car and drive. Tyler, you're scaring me. You're right here, I'm looking at you. I'm not there, I screamed, causing a flock of crows to explode from the trees above me. Whatever you're looking at, it's not me. Sarah, please, I'm begging you. The line went dead. I tried calling back, but now my phone showed no signal. No missed calls, no voicemail messages. According to the call log, I'd never called Sarah at all. The procession of Tyler Brooks' faces had caught up to me while I was on the phone. They stood in a semicircle, all looking down at me with expressions of infinite patience. The trail of the dead isn't a punishment, they said in unison, my voice echoing from dozens of throats. It's a mercy. Everyone who walks this path dies anyway. Car accidents, disease, old age, violence. We just get to die all at once, quickly instead of slowly over decades. I looked up at them, my doppelgangers wearing the faces of the disappeared, and asked the question that had been burning in my throat. How long have I been dead? 8 years, they replied. You died the day you became a ranger, fell from the lookout tower during your first week, broke your neck on the rocks below. Everything since then has been the trail showing you what you needed to see to accept your fate. The memories came flooding back then, suppressed by 8 years of psychotic break disguised as normal life. The fall, the rocks rushing up to meet me, the wet snap of vertebrae, the long, long moment of understanding that I would never see Sarah and Emma again. Your wife remarried 2 years ago, the collective Tyler said gently. Emma calls him Dad now. They're happy. They remember you fondly, but they've moved on. The only one who hasn't moved on is you. I pulled out my wallet with shaking hands and looked at the photos I carried. Sarah and Emma at the beach. Emma's first day of kindergarten. Our wedding picture. But in every photo, Emma's face was blurred, like she was moving too fast for the camera to catch. And Sarah was looking just to the left of where I should be standing. I'd been editing myself into my own memories. The trail appears to those about to die because we are about to die. The chorus of my own voice continued. We've been dying this whole death over and over, in a loop that only ends when we accept the truth. I stood up slowly, my legs steady now for the first time since I'd entered the forest. The phosphorescent trail stretched ahead of me, leading deeper into trees that I finally understood were not diseased but burned, still burning from a fire that had never been extinguished. What about Rachel Stone? There is no Rachel Stone, there never was. She was the last piece of bait the trail needed to get you to see it clearly. I nodded, the truth settling over me like a heavy blanket. 8 years of false life, of playing house with ghosts, of saving people who didn't need saving because they were just as dead as I was. The procession of Tyler Brooks turned and began walking deeper into the forest. I hesitated for just a moment, thinking of Emma's laugh, Sarah's morning coffee, all the small moments that had felt so real. Then I took my first conscious step on the trail of the dead. The phosphorescent light grew brighter with each footfall, and I could feel the weight of 8 years of denial lifting from my shoulders. Behind me, the false world I'd constructed, ranger station, missing persons cases, daily life with my family, dissolved like morning mist. Ahead of me, the trail wound between burning trees toward a horizon that pulsed with the rhythm of a dying heart. My heart, I realized, still beating its last few beats from that moment 8 years ago when I hit the rocks. But just before the trail curved out of sight, I heard something that made me look back one last time. Emma's voice, faint but clear, calling across 8 years of death. Bye, Daddy. I love you. And for the first time since I'd fallen from that tower, I smiled. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror, and comment your theory about what really happened to Tyler Brooks. I read every single one. The official report states that Forest Ranger Tyler Brooks fell to his death from the Olympic National Park fire tower on October 15, 2010. His body was recovered 3 days later. There have been no missing person cases in that sector of the park since his death. Rangers working the Hoh River Trail sometimes report seeing a lone figure walking parallel to the main trail, visible only in their peripheral vision. When they turn to look directly, there's nothing there. Just trees, shadows, and the sound of footsteps on a path that doesn't exist. My name is Brandon Hayes, and I've been a forest ranger for 8 years, but I'd only been working Olympic National Park in Washington for 3 weeks when Chloe Anderson disappeared, and nothing in my experience back in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park could have prepared me for what I encountered in those ancient, rain-soaked woods. The call came in at 05:47 hours on October 28, 2019. I was nursing my third cup of black coffee in the Hoh Ranger Station, studying topographical maps and trying to memorize trail names I still stumbled over. The radio crackled to life with dispatch's voice. Unit 23, we have a code yellow. Missing hiker Chloe Anderson, age 22. Last seen on Hoh River Trail yesterday at approximately 1400 hours. I keyed my radio, fingers still learning the rhythm of this new forest's communications. Unit 23, copy. What's the LKP? Last known position, coordinates 47-8606 to N, 123-9348 to W near the Hoh River footbridge. Subject was hiking alone, failed to check in with roommate as planned. Vehicle still in parking area. My gut tightened. Solo hiker, missed check-in, car still there. Every ranger's nightmare scenario. I grabbed my pack, already loaded with SAR gear I'd organized obsessively my first week. Garmin GPS unit, extra batteries, emergency bivvy, first aid kit, headlamp, backup flashlight. The weight of it felt familiar against my shoulders, even if everything else about this place felt foreign. The Hoh rainforest is unlike anything in Colorado. Where I'm used to thin air and granite peaks, here the air hangs thick and green, heavy with moisture that seems to breathe. Sitka spruce and western hemlock tower overhead like cathedral pillars, some over 300 feet tall. The understory is a tangle of ferns and moss so thick it swallows sound. Back home you could hear a hiker talking from a quarter-mile away. Here someone could be screaming 20 feet from you and you'd never know. I started at the Hoh River trailhead at 0630, following standard search protocols. Grid pattern, sign cutting, looking for disturbed vegetation, footprints, dropped items. Chloe's roommate had described her. 5'6", brown hair, wearing a red North Face jacket and black hiking boots. She'd been carrying a blue Osprey backpack. The first mile of trail was clear, well-maintained boardwalk through the rainforest, tourist-friendly. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it initially, just a wrongness in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. The normal sounds were there, dripping water, distant bird calls, the rush of the Hoh River. But underneath it all was a silence that made the hair on my neck stand up. At 7:45, I reached the coordinates where Chloe was last seen. The Hoh River footbridge spans about 30 feet over water running fast and dark from recent October rains. I called out, "Chloe Anderson, Forest Service." My voice echoed strangely, absorbed by the moss-draped trees. No response. I started sign cutting around the bridge area looking for tracks. The ground was soft from constant moisture, perfect for reading sign. I found boot prints that could have been hers. Size 8 or 9, aggressive tread pattern consistent with hiking boots, but they seemed to wander off the main trail in an unusual pattern, zigzagging between trees with no apparent destination. That's when I heard it for the first time, children laughing. High, clear laughter echoing through the forest. I stopped dead, listening. It seemed to come from deeper in the woods, off-trail. My radio crackled. "Unit 23, what's your status?" "Unit 23, Investigating possible audio contact. Hearing voices in the forest. Copy. Proceed with caution. I followed the sound, pushing through sword ferns that brushed against my uniform pants. The laughter continued, playful, innocent. It reminded me of my daughter Emma playing in our backyard back in Colorado. The memory hit me like a physical punch. Emma giggling as she chased our dog around the yard, Sarah calling us in for dinner. I'd promised Emma I'd be home for Halloween. "Don't worry, baby girl," I'd said, kissing her forehead. "Daddy's just learning about his new forest. I'll be back to take you trick-or-treating." The children's laughter grew closer. I pushed through a curtain of hanging moss and found myself in a small clearing I didn't remember from any of the maps I'd studied. Ancient stumps dotted the space, remnants of logging from decades past. And there, sitting on one of the stumps, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Pale skin, dark hair and pigtails, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow in the filtered green light. She was facing away from me, but I could hear her humming a tune I almost recognized. "Hey there, sweetheart," I called out, approaching slowly. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" She didn't turn around, but the humming stopped. My boots crunched on fallen leaves as I moved closer. Something was wrong with this picture. What was a little girl doing alone in the middle of the Olympic wilderness? And that dress. It looked too clean, too white for someone who'd been walking through the muddy forest. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" When I got within 10 feet of her, she finally turned around. I'll never forget that face as long as I live. It was a child's face, but the eyes were ancient, black as river stones and filled with a hunger that made my blood freeze. Her smile was too wide, showing too many teeth. "Are you looking for the lost girl?" she asked in a voice like wind through dead leaves. I took an involuntary step back, my hand instinctively moving to my radio. What lost girl?" "Chloe," the child said, and hearing that name from those lips made my skin crawl. "She's been playing with us. Do you want to play too?" "Where is she? Where's Chloe?" The little girl giggled, the same sound I'd been following. "She's with the others. They're all playing hide and seek, but they've been hiding for so long they forgot how to seek." More laughter echoed from the forest around us. I spun in a circle, trying to locate the sources. Shadows moved between the trees, small shapes darting just at the edge of my vision. Children's voices calling out in some twisted game. "Come play with us," the girl on the stump said, standing up. As she rose, I noticed her feet didn't quite touch the ground. We know all the best hiding places. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I'm a ranger. I had a job to do. "I need to find Chloe Anderson. She's in danger." "Oh, she's not in danger," the child said, her head tilting at an unnatural angle. "She's safe with us, forever safe, forever playing." That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Scattered around the clearing, barely visible under fallen leaves and moss, were personal items: a hiking boot, a torn piece of red fabric, a broken compass, a rusted canteen that looked decades old. "How long have you been playing here?" I asked. The child's smile grew impossibly wider. "Time doesn't matter when you're having fun. Some have been playing since the big trees were small. Some just started yesterday." I keyed my radio with shaking fingers. "Unit 23 to dispatch. I need immediate backup. I've got a situation here." Static filled the airwaves. I checked the display. No signal. Impossible. I'd had full bars just minutes ago. "Radios don't work when you're playing," the child explained. "Nothing from outside works. Only the game matters." More shapes materialized from the forest. Children of different ages, all wearing clothes from different eras. A boy in what looked like 1950s camping gear. A girl in a 1970s windbreaker. Another in modern hiking clothes that could have been from last week. All with those same black, hungry eyes. "We've been waiting for a new player," one of them said. "Someone who knows the forest, someone who can find the really good hiding spots." I backed away, trying to find the trail I'd come from. But the forest had changed. The trees seemed taller, the canopy thicker. Paths that should have led back to the main trail instead curved deeper into the woods. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Brandon Hayes' situation? Comment below. The phantom children began to circle me, their movements unnaturally silent. They left no footprints in the soft earth. Their laughter echoed from all directions, creating a disorienting chorus that made it impossible to think straight. "Where's Chloe?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's hiding," whispered a boy who looked about Emma's age. The resemblance was so striking it made my heart ache. Just like all the others, they hide so well that they forget who they used to be. I pulled out my GPS unit. The screen showed nothing but static. My compass spun wildly, unable to find magnetic north. Even my watch had stopped, the hands frozen at 8:33. "Let me show you where she's hiding," the little girl in white said, reaching out her hand. Her skin was pale as birch bark and cold as river stones. "It's the most wonderful hiding place, so deep in the forest that no one will ever find you." I jerked my hand away. "I'm not playing your games." "But you already are," she said sadly. "The moment you heard us laughing, you joined the game. The moment you followed our voices off the trail, you started hiding too." That's when the horrible truth hit me. I looked around frantically, trying to spot any landmark I recognized, but the forest had become a maze of identical trees and shadows. Every direction looked the same. I was lost. "Sarah," I whispered, thinking of my wife back home. She'd be getting Emma ready for school right now, probably wondering why I hadn't called like I promised. "They all remember their families at first," said another phantom child, this one wearing a park ranger uniform from what looked like the 1980s. The sight of that uniform made my blood freeze. But the memories fade. The hiding place is so comfortable, so safe. Eventually they forget there's any other world besides the game. I started running. Behind me, the children's laughter followed, growing louder and more excited. They loved the chase. I crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at my uniform, moss slapping against my face. My radio bounced against my hip. Useless. My GPS unit showed only static snow. I ran for what felt like hours, but the light filtering through the canopy never changed. The forest stretched endlessly in all directions, an impossible labyrinth of green shadows and dripping moisture. No matter which direction I turned, I could hear the children following, their voices calling out, "Brandon, come back. We found the perfect hiding spot. Your daughter would love to play with us." That last comment made me stumble. They knew about Emma. How did they know about Emma? I found myself in another clearing, this one larger. Ancient stumps formed a rough circle like some primitive amphitheater, and there, sitting on the largest stump in the center, was Chloe Anderson. She looked exactly as her roommate had described: brown hair, red North Face jacket, black hiking boots. But her eyes had that same black, empty quality as the phantom children. She was staring straight ahead, not blinking, a slight smile on her lips. "Chloe!" I called out, rushing toward her. "Chloe Anderson! I'm Ranger Hayes. I'm here to take you home." She turned her head toward me with mechanical precision. "Home?" The word sounded foreign in her mouth, like she was trying to remember what it meant. "Yes, home. Your roommate is worried sick. Everyone's looking for you." "I've been playing hide and seek," she said in a flat, emotionless voice. "I found such a good hiding place. They said I could stay forever." Around the clearing, the phantom children began to emerge from the trees. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Some looked like they were from this century, others from decades past, all with those terrible ancient eyes. "She doesn't want to leave," said the little girl in white, appearing beside Chloe. "None of them want to leave once they understand the game." I knelt in front of Chloe, trying to make eye contact. "Chloe, listen to me. These aren't real children. Something's wrong here. We need to get out of this forest." "But I like hiding," she whispered. "It's so peaceful. No school, no job, no worries, just the game. Your family loves you. I said desperately. "They're waiting for you to come home." For just a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Real emotion, confusion, fear. Family? The phantom children moved closer, their circle tightening. "Don't listen to him," they whispered in unison. "He's trying to spoil the game. He wants to take you back to the world of pain and worry and death." "No," I said firmly. "I want to take you back to the world of the living." That's when I understood. These children weren't alive. They were the remnants of people who'd gotten lost in these woods over the decades, maybe centuries. Hikers, campers, maybe even other rangers who'd wandered off trail and never found their way back. The forest had claimed them, and now they claimed others. "How long have you been here?" I asked the little girl in white. "Since the big trees were small," she said sadly. "I was picking berries with Mama. I heard children laughing and followed the sound. I've been playing ever since." A century, maybe more. She'd been lost in these woods for over a century. "And you?" I asked the boy in the ranger uniform. "I came looking for a lost hiker in 1987, he said. "Just like you. Found her too. She was playing with the children. They invited me to join." My heart sank. How many searchers had become the searched? How many rescuers had needed rescuing only to join this eternal game of hide and seek? I thought of Emma again, her gap-toothed grin when I'd left for Washington. "Bring me back a pine cone, Daddy," she'd said. I had one in my pocket right now, a perfect little cone from a Douglas fir. I'd planned to give it to her when I got home for Halloween. That pine cone, physical proof of the real world. I pulled it from my pocket, holding it up. "This is from your forest," I told the phantom children. "But it's going to my daughter in Colorado, because I have a life outside this game, because there's more to existence than hiding." The children recoiled slightly, as if the pine cone hurt their eyes. "Chloe," I said urgently, "what's in your backpack? What did you bring with you that connects you to home?" She blinked slowly, fighting against the mental fog. My phone?" "Yes, your phone. It has pictures, right? Messages from people who love you?" With enormous effort, like someone waking from a deep sleep, Chloe reached for her backpack. The phantom children grew agitated, their forms flickering like flames in a wind. "Don't," they pleaded. "Don't remember. It only hurts to remember." But Chloe pulled out her iPhone XR. The screen was cracked, but it still had power. She tapped it with trembling fingers and the lock screen lit up. A photo of Chloe with two other girls all laughing at some college party. "My roommates," she whispered, and real tears began to flow down her cheeks. "Jess and Morgan, they're waiting for me." The phantom children shrieked, their forms becoming more transparent. "You're ruining everything. The game was perfect." But Chloe was standing up, memories flooding back. "I have a psychology exam next week. I promised my mom I'd call Sunday. She looked around the clearing in horror. "What is this place? How long have I been here?" 3 days, I said, grabbing her hand. "But we're leaving, right now." The phantom children surrounded us, their faces contorting with rage and hunger. "You can't leave. No one leaves the game." But I noticed something. As Chloe remembered her real life, the forest around us began to change. The trees seemed less imposing. Real sounds filtered through. Actual bird calls, the distant rush of the Hoh River. "Follow me," I said, pulling Chloe toward what I hoped was the right direction. "Stay focused on home. Think about your roommates, your family, anything that's real." We ran through the forest, the phantom children's screams echoing behind us. But they seemed weaker now, less substantial. Chloe's return to reality was breaking whatever spell held this place together. "There," Chloe pointed ahead. "I remember that tree, the one with the weird branch formation." We were back on the Hoh River Trail. Real trail markers appeared, pointing toward the trailhead. My GPS unit flickered back to life, showing our actual location. My radio crackled with dispatch calling my unit number. Unit 23, this is dispatch. What's your status? You've been radio silent for 4 hours. 4 hours. It had felt like days. Unit 23, I have the missing hiker. We're heading back to Trailhead. Request medical eval and transport. We stumbled out of the forest just as the afternoon sun was setting. Chloe was suffering from dehydration and mild hypothermia, but she was alive. Real. Human. As the EMTs checked her over, she grabbed my arm. "Those children," she whispered. "They're still out there, aren't they?" I looked back at the dark tree line. Even now I could swear I heard faint laughter echoing from the depths of the forest. "Yeah," I said quietly. "They're still playing." That night I called Sarah and Emma. Just hearing their voices made me break down crying. I told Sarah I loved her more than she could know. I told Emma I had the most beautiful pine cone waiting for her. "Daddy," Emma said over the phone, "you sound scared. Are the trees scary there?" "Some of them, baby girl, but Daddy's coming home soon." "Good. The trees here miss you too." I requested a transfer the next week. Told my supervisor I wasn't a good fit for Olympic National Park. He didn't ask questions. Apparently it wasn't unusual for rangers to request transfers after working the Hoh River area. But before I left, I did some research. Missing persons reports going back decades. Hikers, campers, even other park employees who'd vanished without a trace in that section of forest. The local Native American tribes have stories about that area. Warnings passed down through generations about children's voices that lead travelers astray. I learned something else too. The phantom child in the ranger uniform? His name was David Chen. He disappeared in 1987 while searching for a missing hiker named Patricia Williams. Patricia Williams was never found either. How many others are still out there playing that eternal game of hide and seek? How many rescuers have become the rescued only to become the danger themselves? I don't know. What I do know is that some forests have rules different from the natural world. Some places between the trees exist outside normal time and space, where the line between the living and the lost becomes dangerously thin. And sometimes late at night when the wind is blowing through the pines outside my Colorado home, I still hear them calling my name. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror, and comment your theory about what really happened to Chloe Anderson. I read every single one. My name is Sarah Chen, and I've been a forest ranger at Olympic National Park for 12 years. I've seen bodies pulled from ravines, hypothermia victims blue as winter sky, and enough missing person cases to fill a morgue twice over. What I haven't seen, despite what the local Kino tribe members whisper around their campfires, is anything supernatural. Ghosts don't leave footprints, curses don't file incident reports, and ancient spirits sure as hell don't make people vanish into thin air. Until October 15th, 2018. The day I learned that some things are older and hungrier than my cynicism. The call came through at 05:47 hours, crackling through my Motorola radio like broken glass. Unit 7, we have a code yellow at Enchanted Valley Trail. Missing hiker female, early 20s. Last seen yesterday evening near the Canal River crossing. I rolled out of my ranger station bunk, tasting yesterday's coffee gone bitter in my mouth. My hands found my gear automatically. Garmin GPS, first aid kit, emergency beacon, the weight of my duty belt familiar as my own skin. Outside, October rain hammered the roof like bullets, each drop carrying the metallic scent of coming winter. Copy that, dispatch. Sarah Chen responding. ETA 20 minutes. I grabbed my thermos, the photo of Emma and Lily taped inside my locker catching the fluorescent light. Emma's laugh frozen in time, Lily missing her 2 front teeth, gap-toothed grin that could power the entire park. I'd promised them pancakes when I got home tonight. The missing hiker was Megan Kelly, 22 years old from Seattle, solo backpacking through the valley. Her car sat empty in the trailhead parking lot, Washington plates catching the weak morning light. Inside, I found energy bar wrappers, a half-empty water bottle still cold to the touch, and a guidebook with pages marked by nervous fingers. Fucking tourists, I muttered, shouldering my pack. The weight settled across my shoulders like an old friend, 43 pounds of gear that had kept me alive through worse searches than this. The Enchanted Valley Trail stretched ahead like a green tunnel, Douglas firs towering overhead like cathedral pillars. My morel boots found their rhythm on the muddy path, heel-toe, heel-toe, the sound swallowed by moss and shadow. The air tasted of decomposing leaves and something else, something wrong that made my sinuses burn. I'd covered maybe 3 miles when I found the first sign of trouble. Megan's hiking pole, aluminum shaft bent at an impossible angle, lay half-buried in ferns beside the trail. The metal looked like it had been twisted by giant hands, spiral fractures running through the grip tape. No animal could have done this, no natural force I knew of. "Dispatch Unit 7, I radioed, voice steady despite the ice forming in my gut. "I've got evidence of distress at coordinates 47.5547, 123.892, requesting additional units." Static answered me. Then, "Unit 7, we're spread thin with the weather. Can you continue solo assessment?" I should have said no. Should have waited for backup, followed protocol, acted like the 12-year veteran I was. Instead, I thought of some scared kid lost in these woods, maybe injured, maybe dying while I waited for bureaucracy to unfold. "Copy that. Continuing search pattern." The trail climbed steadily through old-growth forest, the canopy so thick that noon felt like twilight. My GPS showed I was making good time, but something felt wrong with the distances, the landmarks I knew. A massive cedar snag, a rockfall from last spring, seemed to appear in the wrong order, like the forest was rearranging itself around me. That's when I started hearing the whispers. Soft at first, like wind through pine needles, the sound barely registered in my conscious mind. But as I climbed higher, the whispers grew clearer, more distinct. Not English, something older, harsher, with syllables that seemed to stick in my throat like fishhooks. My rational mind cataloged the possibilities. Auditory hallucinations from dehydration, pareidolia making random sounds seem like voices, the acoustic tricks old-growth forests could play on your ears. But my body was already responding to something deeper, something primitive. Hair standing up on my arms, sweat going cold despite the climb, heart rate spiking without reason. I found Megan's backpack at the 4-mile marker, right where the trail crossed an unnamed creek. The pack hung from a branch 12 feet above the ground, fabric shredded like something with claws had tried to tear it open. Inside, her supplies were scattered, granola bars crushed to powder, water bottles punctured in perfect circles, her journal soaked through with creek water that ran red in the afternoon light. The journal's final entry, written in cramped, panicked handwriting, made my mouth go dry. "They're in the trees, watching. The ranger station said stay on the trail, but the trail is wrong now. It's leading me somewhere I'm not supposed to go. The whispers won't stop. They're getting louder. I can see smoke rising from the valley ahead, but there shouldn't be any fires. There shouldn't be." The entry ended mid-sentence, ink bleeding into water stains that looked too much like handprints. "Shit," I breathed, scanning the tree line with new urgency. The whispers were louder now, seeming to come from all directions at once, and there was smoke. Thin gray tendrils rising from the valley ahead, carrying scents of cedar and something else, something burning that shouldn't burn. I should have turned back, should have called in the helicopter, set up a proper grid search with dogs and thermal imaging. But Megan's journal had mentioned seeing smoke, and smoke meant warmth, shelter, possibly other people, if she was hurt, if she was hiding from whatever had shredded her pack. The trail descended into Enchanted Valley proper, and that's when I saw them. The trees. Every Douglas fir, western red cedar, and Sitka spruce in the valley had been carved with symbols. Deep cuts in the bark, some fresh and weeping sap, others old and scarred over. The symbols hurt to look at directly. Geometric patterns that seemed to shift and crawl when I wasn't focusing on them. My eyes watered, and the taste of copper filled my mouth. The smoke was coming from a fire pit at the valley's center, surrounded by a circle of standing stones that definitely hadn't been here on my last patrol. The stones were carved too, covered in the same eye-watering symbols that decorated the trees. And there were bones scattered around the fire. Animal bones, I told myself, though some looked disturbingly familiar. That's where I found Megan. She was alive, technically, tied to a wooden post driven into the ground, her wrists bound with what looked like braided human hair. But her eyes... Christ, her eyes were gone. Not torn out, not damaged, simply absent, leaving behind smooth skin that pulsed with veins visible beneath the surface. She was whispering in that same harsh language I'd been hearing, words that made my teeth ache. Jesus fuck, I gasped, rushing toward her. Megan, can you hear me? She turned toward my voice, and I saw that where her eyes should have been, symbols had been carved into her skin. The same impossible geometries that covered the trees, but these were moving, shifting like living things beneath her flesh. You shouldn't have come, she said, her voice perfectly calm despite the horror of her condition. The guardians are awake now. The sacred ground remembers what was taken. Before I could respond, the forest erupted. If this story is giving you chills, smash that follow button for more supernatural horror. What would you do in Sarah Chen's situation? Comment below. They came from everywhere at once, shapes that had been hiding in the shadow of every tree, behind every stone. Not quite human, not quite animal, but something that remembered being both. Skin like tree bark, fingers ending in root tendrils that left gouges in the earth, eyes that burned with the same symbols carved into Megan's face, the guardians of the sacred ground, older than the park, older than the white settlements, older than anything my rational mind could accept. One of them moved faster than thought, crossing 20 feet in a heartbeat. Its claws raked across my chest, tearing through my uniform shirt and the Kevlar vest beneath like they were paper. Pain exploded through my ribcage as warm blood soaked through my thermal underwear. The smell of my own fear sweat mixed with the metallic stench of torn flesh. I rolled backward, hand going instinctively to my radio. Mayday, mayday. Officer down at Enchanted Valley. Multiple hostiles. Request immediate backup. Static answered me. The radio was dead, LCD screen cracked and dark. Another guardian lunged from my left, and I barely got my arm up in time. Its teeth, Christ, so many teeth, like a shark's mouth filled with splinters of obsidian, clamped down on my forearm. I felt bones crack, felt warm blood spray across moss-covered ground. My scream echoed through the valley, raw and animal. But the pain did something unexpected. It cleared away the fear, the confusion, the rational disbelief that had been clouding my judgment. For the first time since entering the valley, my mind was crystal clear. These things had taken Megan. They had tortured her, carved symbols into her living flesh, stolen her eyes to replace them with their ancient marks. They were going to do the same to me, then probably hunt down every other hiker who had ever trespassed on their sacred ground, including Emma, including Lily. The thought of those creatures anywhere near my family ignited something in my chest that burned hotter than the pain of broken bones. I grabbed the guardian's head with both hands and twisted, feeling vertebrae pop like bubble wrap. It released my arm with a shriek that sounded like rending metal. You want to fight? I snarled, tasting blood. Let's fucking dance. What happened next defied every law of physics and biology I'd ever learned. As my rage peaked, as the thought of my family's safety consumed every rational thought, something awakened in my blood. Something that had been sleeping for generations. The symbols carved into the trees began to glow, and I realized they weren't just decorative. They were a language, a warning, a barrier between two worlds that someone, something, had been trying to maintain for centuries. And I could read them. The knowledge flooded my mind like ice water, carrying memories that weren't mine. My great-grandmother's face, younger than I'd ever seen her, standing in this same valley with other women whose names had been lost to time. Their hands bloody from carving symbols, their voices raised in words that hurt the throat to speak. The Kino tribe hadn't been the first people here. They'd been the second, called to contain something older, something hungry. The guardians weren't protecting the sacred ground. They were imprisoned by it, and the symbols were the locks. Over the decades, as fewer people remembered the old ways, as the symbols weathered and faded, the locks had been weakening. Megan hadn't just wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time. She'd been called, drawn by the Guardian's growing influence, used as a key to begin opening doors that should have stayed closed forever. My great-grandmother's blood ran in my veins, the blood of the keepers, the women who had sacrificed everything to keep the ancient hungry things contained. I felt my fingernails extend into claws, felt my canine teeth sharpen into fangs, felt muscles in my back reshape themselves with sounds like tearing leather. The transformation hurt like nothing I'd ever experienced. Bones breaking and reforming, skin stretching and tearing, organs shifting inside my rib cage like fighting cats. But when it was over, I was something new, something designed to hunt guardians. The nearest creature rushed me with inhuman speed, claws extended, mouth open in a soundless roar. I met its charge head-on, my own claws punching through its bark-like hide and into whatever passed for its heart. Black ichor sprayed across my face, tasting of mushrooms and decay, as the Guardian dissolved into shadow and memory. The others hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, I acted. I leaped past them to Megan's post, slashing through her bonds with claws that could have carved granite. She collapsed into my arms, her weight barely more than a child's, her skin fever-hot and slick with sweat. "The fire," she whispered, her ruined face turning toward the stone circle. "They're using the fire to call the others. All of them. The whole hungry dark." I looked at the flame dancing between the carved stones and realized she was right. This wasn't just a campfire, it was a beacon, a signal fire calling to every guardian that had ever been imprisoned in sacred grounds across the continent, maybe across the world. If they all awakened, if they all broke free at once. The image of Emma making pancakes in our kitchen while Lily colored at the dining room table flickered through my mind, followed by another image, the same scene, but with guardians crouched in the corners, their symbol-burned eyes watching, waiting. I couldn't let that happen. Still carrying Megan, I charged toward the fire pit. The remaining guardians moved to intercept me, but my transformed body was faster, stronger, driven by love and terror in equal measure. I slashed through them like they were made of morning mist, leaving trails of dissolving shadow in my wake. The fire was bigger up close, flames reaching toward the canopy with unnatural colors, blues and greens that had never existed in any natural flame. The heat hit me like a physical blow, and I could feel my skin beginning to blister even from 10 feet away. "You have to destroy the stones," Megan said, her voice barely audible over the fire's roar. "Break the circle. Send them back to sleep." The stones were massive, each one easily weighing several tons, but my transformed muscles coiled with power I'd never possessed, strength that came from something deeper than flesh and bone. I set Megan down gently, then grabbed the nearest stone with both hands. The symbols carved into its surface burned my palms like acid, but I held on, lifted and heaved with everything I had. The stone came free from the earth with a sound like thunder, roots and buried cables snapping as I hurled it into the forest. It crashed through 3 Douglas firs before finally coming to rest. Immediately the fire dimmed. The guardians shrieked in harmony, a sound that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. But they were already growing fainter, their forms becoming translucent as the binding circle weakened. I grabbed another stone, ignoring the agony in my burned hands, and sent it flying into the valley wall. Rock shattered against rock, echoes rolling through the forest like cannon fire. "No." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, ancient and furious. "The compact is broken, the hunger will not be denied." "Fuck your hunger," I snarled, lifting the 3rd stone. "And fuck your compact." This one I threw straight up, watching it arc through the air before crashing down onto the fire pit itself. Sparks exploded in every direction, supernatural flames guttering like candles in a hurricane. The 4th stone, the 5th, the 6th. With each impact, the guardians grew fainter, their forms dissolving back into shadow and memory. The impossible whispers faded to nothing. The symbols carved into the trees stopped glowing, becoming just scars in bark once again. When the last stone fell, silence returned to Enchanted Valley. Real silence, without the undercurrent of otherworldly presence that had been buzzing in my bones since I'd entered this place. Megan was unconscious, but breathing, her ruined face peaceful for the first time since I'd found her. The symbols carved into her skin had stopped moving, becoming just scars that would heal with time and good medical care. My own transformation was already reversing, claws retracting, fangs shortening, the supernatural strength draining from my muscles like water through sand. By the time I keyed my radio, working again somehow, I was just Sarah Chen once more. Battered, bloody, and carrying scars both inside and out, but human. Dispatch Unit 7, I've found our missing hiker. Request medical evac at Enchanted Valley ASAP. And dispatch, we're going to need to close this trail. Indefinitely. The helicopter arrived 40 minutes later, rotors thundering over the treetops like mechanical thunder. The paramedics asked questions I couldn't answer, documented injuries I couldn't explain, airlifted Megan to Harborview Medical Center where surgeons would work miracles on her destroyed eyes. I stayed behind to secure the scene, to file the reports that would never tell the whole truth, to walk the valley one last time before the Park Service sealed it off for geological instability. Near the ruined fire pit, I found something the Guardians had left behind. A piece of carved bone small enough to fit in my palm, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. But I could read them now, would always be able to read them. They said, "The Keepers remember, the Keepers watch, the Keepers hold the line." I slipped the bone into my pocket and started the long hike back to my truck, back to the real world, back to Emma and Lily and pancakes on Sunday morning. But I knew I'd be returning to this valley someday. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but someday. Because the hungry dark never really sleeps. It just waits. And someone has to keep watch over the places where it dreams. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm a forest ranger at Olympic National Park. I'm also something else now, something older, something that remembers. And when the shadows start whispering again, I'll be ready. Holy hell, that was intense. Did that ending blow your mind? Like, if you want more terrifying ranger stories, follow for daily supernatural horror. And comment your theory about what really happened to Megyn Kelly. I read every single one.